Mark would be a massive understatement. And for today's video, we're going to run through some of the best when it comes to leaving an arena totally stunned. Let's get into it. Alex Pereira might be best known for his signature left hook, but when he finds an opening for his knees, the results are usually deadly. We've seen him land this exact technique recently in the UFC. Speaking of knees, this next one is a truly crazy piece of KO magic. After making the read on his opponent's head movement, Daniel Alunga timed this step-in knee perfectly, catching his target as he ducked to evade the incoming punches. The impact was brutal, yes, but there was layers of finesse behind this one that really made it one hell of a knockout blow. A clinical strike with some violent consequences for its target. There's nothing quite like a bit of misdirection in the kickboxing ring, and this next one is a prime example of how to set your opponent up, how to make them overconfident. The head kick that was lazily thrown first, a shot that was easily blocked by his opponent, but the real weapon came a second later. A spinning heel kick right to the face. There was no stopping this one. It was fired before its target had any idea it was coming. A clean connection and a nasty finish. This perfect roundhouse kick to the head would look good on just about anyone's highlight reel. Nothing too fancy to see here, just some solid fundamentals and a well-honed killer instinct. This fighter didn't need much of an invitation to fire off this fight-ending shot, and as soon as he found the space, it was a one-shot, one-kill kind of maneuver. Some vintage buakaw violence comes in next, and this legendary fighter landed an incredibly stiff left hand over the top, sending his opponent crashing down to the canvas. The pivot he used to set this one up was masterful, and it doesn't take an expert to know that this dude is packing some incredible natural power. Amazing technique, yes, but some fighters are just born with a different type of power. When Mark Hunt lands a punch, it looks like his opponent got hit by a truck. The Super Samoan just has a sturdiness to him that results in the type of full-bodied knockout shots that would silence an entire arena. And this next one was no different. A trademark Mark Hunt overhand right led to the knockdown before his opponent somehow got to his feet. But then, with momentum behind him, Hunt didn't wait around, KOing him in brutal fashion. What's worse than eating one tomahawk elbow to the face? Well, when you've already taken one solid tomahawk right to the chin, and your opponent then decides to double up on them. Yeah, that's always going to result in a KO. And this next entry was just about as brutal a usage of this violent method as you'll ever see. There's no getting up from that. Lights out. Even the great ones sometimes have to battle through hard-fought losses, and for the legendary Muay Thai practitioner Saenchai, though he was a lot younger then and clearly not in his prime, even his legendary chin couldn't hold up in the face of this brutal combination up against the ropes. What's crazy here is that this was the only KO loss of Saenchai's career, a span of time that lasted nearly 3 full decades. A head kick that is partially blocked can still leave enough force behind it to cause a knockout. But a head kick that you don't even see coming? Yeah, that's a different level entirely. And for this Muay Thai fighter, bouncing off the ropes left him temporarily blindsided with his back to his opponent. And that was all this guy needed to fire off the perfect head kick, one that caught his adversary totally off guard. If you know anything about the kickboxing phenom that is Superbon, you'll know that his head kicks are among the most destructive in combat sports today. And for his unfortunate victim here, the impact of that hammer blow was only made worse due to the momentum at which Superbon was moving forward with. The low thudding noise it made as it landed says it all, folks. A big old-fashioned overhand right comes in next, the type of looping, swinging haymaker that is just about as pretty as any punch in boxing. But here it was utilized in a kickboxing bout that came to a very swift and brutal finish. Few highlights are as picture-perfect as this one, and we're sure his opponent felt every pound of force that was generated. More Mark Hunt violence comes in next as the Super Samoan delivered an absolute howitzer of a right hand, a punch that resulted in one of the loudest and most pronounced impact noises you'll ever hear. As we said before, Hunt hits like an absolute truck, but even by his standards, this was insanely good. This next one looks like something ripped from the pages of a Rocky Balboa script. This dude worked the body with such intensity at first, doubling up before going up high with the fight-ending blow. It was a sequence of pure power used intelligently, and as you can tell from the footage, his opponent had absolutely no chance in hell of recovering from this one. He was even gearing up for another powerful hook, but it was clearly not necessary. Kicks can be used to probe, to gauge distance. They can even be used to shepherd a fighter into a certain part of the ring. But when they're used as a direct counter for a recklessly thrown punch, that's where you really start to see some sparks fly. And that's what we have here. The victim reached a tad bit too far for his own good, and when his opponent spotted his mistake, the punishment was already on its way. This next one is pretty wild. If you know anything about Tyrone Spong, you're aware that he hits like a sledgehammer. But in the earliest seconds of this fight, it was Spong who found himself on the canvas. Luckily, he immediately recovered and delivered a concussive shot for his TKO revenge, just seconds after regaining his sense. The lesson? Well, if you're going to drop someone as good as Spong, be very, very careful if he gets back to his feet. A hopping counter spinning hook kick to the face? Yeah, this knockout was always going to find its way to one of our videos eventually. He didn't even land especially clean with the shot, instead heavily grazing the top of the dude's head with his foot. But with a technique like that, you really don't need to land flush. A slick and highly effective overhand comes in next, a powerful but extremely fast shot that really made its impact felt. Speed kills, and this knockout really sums that phrase up better than most. The follow-up hammer fists were barely necessary because this bout was all but finished as soon as this punch found its mark. But hey, that's mixed martial arts for you. One shot is never quite enough, it seems. We've been showing a lot of great work from Mark Hunt recently, but we'd be wrong not to show you just how badly it's gone for him inside the ring as well. Facing off against the powerful Dutchman Melvin Manoff, Hunt was taken out in the earliest stages of this contest in truly brutal fashion by the much smaller but no less powerful Manoff. This moment from the great Rod Tang's back catalog isn't usually the first one that we reach for when discussing the legendary TIE fighter's skills. But many great fighters encounter setbacks early on, and as it turns out, Rod Tang is no different. However, this modern great of the Muay Thai get totally face-planted isn't any stranger to see in action. The man would, of course, go on to have an illustrious career in the ring, but this one was a bad one. Some fighters just have the next-level finishing instinct, and for our money, we think the icon Buakaw is certainly one of those fighters. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more lethal example of this man's prowess than this next clip. After jumping into a flying knee but falling short, Buakaw seamlessly switches to a huge elbow, catching his opponent totally off guard for the instant KO. A beautiful piece of misdirection and quick thinking from Buakaw. Catching your opponent's kick can be a perfect way to make their chances of defending themselves correctly plummet. And for this next KO, that's exactly what happened. The kick was caught, and its victim tried to spin out at this vulnerable position. He realized he'd made a huge mistake, exposing him to a lethal head kick that was already on its way. And the way his limp body collided with the ropes? Just plain nasty. We've already watched some bona fide legends of kickboxing take vicious L's early in their careers. But this Super Bond knockout loss was another level of violent entirely. Caught up against the ropes by Marek Grigorian, Super Bond ate shot after shot until the kill blow finally came. And that was all she wrote, folks. The punch stiffened him, leading to a picturesque finish and a win for Grigorian that will not soon be forgotten. Okay, this next entry is just totally out of this world. We've seen people hit strange acrobatic cartwheel kicks before, but this effort from Brian Ebersol was just a wild piece of athleticism that we're still not quite sure how it came off so well. Ebersol flung himself into an actual move pulled straight from a children's playground, and somehow was able to land with the heel to the face, shocking us in the process. If at first you don't succeed, just try to catch them with the other foot, or at least that was the thinking behind this next knockout blow. These Taekwondo guys sure do like to spin, and while attempt number 1 didn't exactly land with the desired level of force, the second shot was truly devastating. A clean spinning wheel kick that sent his opponent directly to the shadow realm. There's no getting up from a shot like that. Those of you who know Tenshin Nasukawa only due to his terrible showdown with Floyd Mayweather are missing out. This guy is as legit a kickboxer as they come. A pound-for-pound, top 10 fighter in his sport, who's a wicked finisher if he smells an opening. And for this highlight, watch as Tenshin fires off a cartwheel kick out of nowhere, landing cleanly on his opponent with some serious impact. Nasukawa remains well worth keeping an eye on. And the crazy thing is, he's only 24. There's nothing quite like a shocking upset. But when that upset also comes alongside a bona fide KO of the year contender, you know you're onto something good. And that's exactly what happened when Super Bond managed to shock the world by head-kicking the great Giorgio Petrosian into oblivion out of nowhere. 1 second he was totally in the fight and conscious, the next, we were picking our jaws up off the floor in shock. A wild KO sequence in every sense of the word.